So we were sitting at a table in South Philadelphia playing penny poker. Rita Ganjami brought a lemon cream pie. Tessie Canalicchio made coffee. Ida Profeta brought apple pies. Felix Lim ate everything. In the midst of the banter and the laughter and the occasional cheating by the ladies, Tessie lowered her voice. And she said to all of us at the table, "Did you hear about Rocco Gandolfi?" And the other ladies just shook their heads. I didn't know who he was. And Tessie said, "He went to the movies." Now, like Paul Harvey, I was waiting for the rest of the story. Which movie did he go to? Did he like the movie? Did he pay $15 for popcorn? What's the rest of the story? Those were my questions, but Ida was not asking those questions. Instead, she made the sign of the cross and she said, "I can't believe it." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And Tessie said, "You know, he went to the movies." And I must have had a blank look on my face, so she tried a different angle. He turned in his Social Security card. And I was still confused. So Tessie literally whispered, "He died." And I said, "Well, why don't you just say that in the first place?" And Tessie said, "You can't talk about death. It is not nice." So if you're ever in South Philadelphia and someone says, "Do you want to go to the movies?" think seriously about your answer. Now, we didn't talk like this where I grew up in Singapore. We had wet markets where they sold fresh meat, fresh fish, fresh produce. And so from an early age, I would see the hawker grab the chicken, kill the chicken, clean the chicken. We took the chicken home and we ate it, and it was delicious. And so from an early age, growing up in that context, I understood that death is a part of life. And if someone were to die in my neighborhood, my parents would say to my sister and I, "He died." If we read the obituary, it said, "He died." And we all understood, we die. It is part of my future. But recently, I'm noticing that our culture is working very hard to make sure that we don't talk about what's real anymore. Now, as a priest, I read obituaries as part of my breakfast. And I've noticed that even when we are writing obituaries, we work very hard not to say the word death. And so in obituaries, you will not read, "He died." You will read, "He passed away." Or, "She passed peacefully into the arms of her Savior." Or, "He went home to be with Jesus." If they are more religious, they might say, "He crossed the river Jordan." I like that one. Or, "She joined the heavenly choir." Another of my favorite, "He'll be smelling flowers from underneath." Another one said, "She put on her jeweled cowgirl boots and joined the last roundup in the sky." My favorite, let's call him David. That's not his real name. David will not be counted in the next census. We don't seem ready to deal with death anymore. And I understand that, because when we lose a loved one, there are so many emotions at work. And families, maybe without realizing it, they work very hard to avoid naming what's real. Perhaps on some level, we, the living, don't want to deal with the fact that the same thing is going to happen to us. And so instead, we smile and we say, "He went to the movies." But in today's gospel, no one is pretending. Everybody knows Lazarus is dead. If Charles Dickens had written the gospel, he would have said, he's dead as a doornail. John wrote the gospel, and he said Lazarus was dead for 4 days. And nobody in the gospel is pretending. Mary and Martha don't tell Jesus and the neighbors, Lazarus went to the movies. These are people who know that death is a part of life. And they are weeping because that's what happens when someone we love dies. They are mourning, and that's appropriate when we have lost a loved one. And they are being honest. Could there be anything more honest than what Martha says to Jesus in verse 39? Lord, he has been dead for 4 days. There's going to be a stench. That's a great word, stench. Or, in the King James translation of the Bible, done in the year 1612, verse 39 reads, Lord, he stinketh. He stinketh. Death stinketh, because it is real. Death is something every one of us will experience. No amount of pretending, no amount of wordplay will change that reality. Death is a final diagnosis. We, all of us, are mortal creatures. We die. That's my future. Mary, Martha, and the neighbors experience the sadness and grief that happens when death invades our daily living. Lazarus, their brother, Jesus' friend, is in the tomb. Jesus didn't come when they called him. Mary and Martha speak from their hearts. Lord, if you had been here. And Jesus weeps. And even while Jesus is weeping, the neighbors are already grumbling. He healed the blind man. Why couldn't he have saved Lazarus? Remember the blind man from last Sunday Gospel? Anyone remembers that? Okay, good. Remember the woman at the well 2 weeks ago, right? How Jesus helped her experience hope and healing even with her messy past. And for approximately 1700 years, Catholics have listened to these 3 stories from John's Gospel during this exact part of Lent. Why? Well, on one hand, we do it because these events, what happened with the woman at the well, what happened with the man born blind, what happened to Lazarus, these are seen as vital events and lessons for the adults who are preparing for baptism. Because through these readings, the candidates for baptism are assured that Christ will forgive their past sins, just as he forgave the woman at the well. The candidates were assured that Christ would heal the wounds of their present and give them faith, just as he did for the man born blind. The candidates for baptism were assured that Christ would raise them from the dead, just as he raised Lazarus. But these readings are not just for those preparing for baptism, they are for all of us, because so many of us are struggling. We are not sure where to turn. We don't know who to trust. Our culture keeps telling us, just keep pretending. But Christians deal with what's real. These 3 gospel passages from John tell us the truth that we need to know throughout our lives. And the truth is this: Christ has forgiven our past. Christ can heal our present. Christ will be with us in the future, even when our future takes us to the tomb. How does Jesus tell us that truth in these 3 gospel passages? Well, first, he's telling us that his love is more powerful than anything that has happened in the past. The woman at the well that we heard about 2 weeks ago, she was burdened by the complexity of her past. 5 husbands, and now she's keeping company with a 6th man that she is not married to. She's an outcast in a society that judged her harshly. Could her past be forgiven? And in fact, Jesus says to her, "Trust me. God has already overcome your past. God's love has already forgiven you. God's love can heal whatever still hurts you. Your past is in my loving hands." Secondly, in the story of the man born blind, Jesus is telling us that his love is more powerful than anything that is hurting us in the moment. The man born blind was literally encased in darkness, and everybody agreed there wasn't any hope for him. And in fact, Jesus says to him, "Trust me. God's love is already overcoming your present pain. God is at work, healing what seems hopeless to you. God's light is shining in whatever's dark in you right now. Your present is in my loving hands." Thirdly, in the story of Lazarus, Jesus, who always speaks what's real to us, says, "Trust me. God's love is already in your future. God is working out his purpose for you. God will walk every step of the journey with you. Like Lazarus, you will die. Like every person who has ever lived, you will die. Like every human being, there is a tomb in your future. But Jesus says, "Trust me. I'm already in your tomb because I'm already been in my own tomb. And I'm there in your tomb so that you will know the truth, which is that your future is in my loving hands. And your future doesn't end when you are dead and buried. The love of God is already in your future, and your future is full of hope. Even though you have to walk to the tomb in order to get there. The Jesus who called to Lazarus, "Come out and live," is already in your future and is calling you by name. Come out and live. Lazarus is dead. He stinketh. And now he lives. He liveth. Who else other than Jesus can do the same for us or make the same promise? Death is real, but so is resurrection. Jesus says in today's gospel, "I am the resurrection and the life." Do you believe him? Do you believe him? If you do, then you can know the power of his love to unburden your past, to heal your present, to lead you in the future. You can find life and love by listening to his voice. Or you can keep on avoiding the truth by going to the movies.